The laboratory was quiet except for the soft humming of machines. Park Mina sat hunched over her microscope, her thick glasses sliding down her nose as she studied the genetic sample on the slide. Her black hair was tied up in a messy bun with a pencil stuck through it. She had been working for 12 hours straight, but she did not feel tired. The alien DNA patterns were too fascinating to ignore. Mina was 23 years old and worked as a xenobiologist on the Galactic Rim Research Station. The station floated in space around Pyrrhion 7, a planet covered in active volcanoes. Most people found the station boring, but Mina loved it here. She could study alien life forms without anyone bothering her. The sample she was examining came from a dragon-like creature found on a distant moon. Mina had always been interested in dragons. Every planet seemed to have some version of them, but no one knew why. She had spent 3 years collecting genetic samples from 42 different worlds, trying to find the connection. Her computer beeped softly. New data scrolled across the screen, showing DNA sequences that made her heart beat faster. This sample was different from all the others. It had markers she had never seen before, patterns that looked almost familiar but completely alien at the same time. A loud announcement echoed through the station speakers. All personnel report to designated positions. The Draconic Empire delegation will arrive in 30 minutes. This is not a drill. Mina sighed and pushed her glasses up. She did not care about politics or diplomacy. She just wanted to finish her research. But Captain Lee Do-yun had made it clear that everyone needed to be present for this meeting. The Draconic Empire controlled 15 star systems, and their Empress was coming to negotiate some kind of territorial dispute with the human colonies. She saved her work and reluctantly walked toward the main hangar bay. The corridors were full of nervous crew members adjusting their uniforms and checking their equipment. Mina felt out of place in her wrinkled lab coat and sneakers. The hangar bay was enormous, big enough to hold 3 starships. Today it had been cleared and decorated, with flags from both the human colonies and neutral worlds. Captain Lee stood near the entrance, his military uniform perfectly pressed. He was 35 years old, with sharp eyes and graying hair at his temples. "Dr. Park," he called out when he saw her, "please stand with the other department heads." Mina nodded and found a spot next to Dr. Kim Ji-won, her research partner and closest friend on the station. Ji-won was older and more confident than Mina, with short hair and a quick smile. "You look terrible," Ji-won whispered. "When did you last sleep?" "Sleep is for people who are not close to a breakthrough," Mina replied, adjusting her glasses again. Before Ji-won could respond, the hangar bay doors opened with a deep rumbling sound. A massive ship slowly entered, so large that it barely fit through the opening. The ship was black with gold markings that looked like scales. It landed with a thud that shook the entire station. Steam hissed from the ship's landing gear. A ramp descended from the belly of the vessel, and figures began walking down it. First came soldiers in dark armor, carrying weapons that glowed with blue energy. They formed 2 lines along the ramp. Then she appeared. Empress Calathara was tall and imposing, with scales that covered parts of her skin in patterns of gold and crimson. Her eyes were yellow like a cat's, and when she walked, her claws clicked against the metal ramp. She wore robes that seemed to shift color in the light, and a crown that looked like it was made from dragon bones. Behind the Empress came more soldiers, diplomats, and advisors. But what made everyone in the hangar bay step backward was what came last. The dragon was enormous. Its head alone was larger than a small spacecraft. Black scales covered its body and red eyes glowed like burning coals. Its wings were folded against its back, but Mina could tell they would span the entire hangar if opened. This was Varak the Destroyer, the Empress's most feared war dragon. Stories said he had burned entire cities and conquered 12 star systems. Captain Lee stepped forward and bowed slightly. "Your Imperial Majesty, welcome to Research Station Pyrrhion 7. We are honored by your visit." The Empress looked around the hangar with obvious disdain. "Captain Lee, I have come to discuss the human expansion into Sector 7. My patience for these negotiations is limited." As she spoke, Varak shifted restlessly behind her. The dragon's massive claws scraped against the floor, leaving deep scratches in the metal. Several crew members moved farther away. "Of course, Your Majesty. We have prepared a conference room for our discussions," Captain Lee said. The Empress nodded curtly. "First, I require quarters for myself and my retinue, and proper containment. For Varakth. He becomes irritable when confined to small spaces for too long. We have prepared Hangar Bay 3 with reinforced barriers and environmental controls," the captain replied. As the diplomatic party began moving toward the exit, something went wrong. Varakth suddenly lifted his massive head and made a sound. That was half roar, half whine? The dragon's red eyes scanned the crowd of humans as if searching for something. "Varakth, heal!" the Empress commanded sharply, but the dragon ignored her. This had never happened before. Varakth had always obeyed instantly. Instead, he took a step forward, his nostrils flaring as he sniffed the air. The Empress's yellow eyes widened with shock and anger. Varakth returned to position immediately. The dragon's head swung back and forth, still searching. His massive body blocked the exit from the hangar bay. Soldiers on both sides reached for their weapons, but no one dared fire at the Empresses. Personal War-Dragon. Captain Lee stepped forward carefully. "Your Majesty, perhaps we should move to the containment area," and his words were cut off by a tremendous roar that shook the walls of the station. Varakth had spotted something or someone in the crowd. The dragon's eyes fixed on a point near the back of the gathered humans. Without warning, Varakth broke away from his handlers and charged forward. His massive claws thundered against the floor as he pushed past the startled soldiers and diplomats. People screamed and ran in all directions, but the dragon paid them no attention. He had found what he was looking for. Mina stood frozen as the enormous creature approached her. She could not move, could not think, could barely breathe. This was how she was going to die, trampled by a legendary war dragon in front of 100 witnesses. But Varakth did not attack. Instead, the massive dragon stopped directly in front of her and lowered his great head until his nose was only inches from her face. His red eyes, each larger than her entire head, stared into her brown ones. Then, impossibly, Varakth made a sound she had never heard a dragon make before. He-P-U-R-R-E-D. It was a deep, rumbling sound like distant thunder, but unmistakably gentle. The dragon's massive head moved closer, and he very carefully nuzzled against her shoulder like an enormous cat seeking affection. The hangar bay fell completely silent. Even the Empress seemed speechless, her mouth open in shock. No one moved. No one breathed. Mena reached up with one trembling hand and touched the warm scales on Varakth's snout. The dragon closed his eyes and purred louder, a sound of complete contentment that filled the entire space. "What?" the Empress whispered, her voice carrying clearly in the silence. "Is happening to my dragon?" The silence in the hangar bay stretched on for what felt like hours. Mina kept her hand pressed against Varakth's warm scales, afraid to move. The dragon's purring filled the enormous space with a sound like a massive engine running smoothly. His red eyes remained closed, and his breathing was slow and peaceful. Empress Kalathara was the first to break the spell. "Varakth," she said, her voice sharp with authority. "Return to me at once." The dragon opened one red eye and looked at his Empress. For a moment Mena thought he might obey, but then Varakth shifted his massive body so that he was positioned between Mena and the Empress. He did not move away from the human girl. "This is impossible," the Empress hissed, her scales changing from gold to a darker, angrier red. "Varakth has never disobeyed a direct command. Not once in 50 years. Captain Lee stepped forward carefully, his hands raised in a peaceful gesture. "Your Majesty, perhaps we should move this discussion to a more private location, Dr. Park? Can you encourage the dragon to follow us?" Mena looked up at the captain with wide eyes behind her thick glasses. "I don't know how. I've never been around a living dragon before." "I only study their genetics." Dr. Kim Ji-won pushed through the crowd to reach her friend. She was pale but trying to stay calm. "Mena, just back away slowly. Maybe he'll lose interest." But when Mena took a small step backward, Varakth immediately followed her. His massive head stayed close to her shoulder, and he made a soft whining sound when she tried to move away from him. "He doesn't want me to leave," Mena said in wonder. "It's like he's bonded to me somehow." The Empress's yellow eyes flashed with fury. Dragons do not bond with strangers. They bond only with their chosen riders after years of training and conditioning. "What kind of human trickery is this?" "It's not trickery," Mena replied, surprised by her own boldness. "I think there might be a scientific explanation. In my research, I've found genetic markers that suggest dragons from different worlds share common ancestors. Maybe humans have some kind of natural compatibility that other species don't have." The Empress strode forward, her claws clicking against the metal floor. Several of her guards moved to follow, but she waved them back. "You dare suggest that your primitive species has abilities that we do not? The Draconic Empire has mastered dragon bonding for thousands of years." Varac's head snapped up when the Empress raised her voice. The dragon's purring stopped, and a low growl rumbled deep in his throat. He positioned himself more firmly between Mena and the approaching Empress. Everyone in the hangar bay froze. Varric had just growled at his own master. This was beyond unprecedented. It was unthinkable. "Varric," the Empress whispered, her voice filled with shock and hurt. "What has she done to you?" The dragon looked back at her with what Mena could only describe as sadness in his ancient red eyes. Then he turned back to Mena and gently nuzzled her arm again. Captain Lee cleared his throat. "Your Majesty, Dr. Park, I think we need to find a solution that works for everyone." "The dragon seems calm when he's near Dr. Park. Perhaps we can arrange the quarters so that both of your needs are met." "Absolutely not," the Empress snapped. "I will not have my most prized war dragon influenced by some human researcher. There must be a way to break whatever spell she has cast on him." "I haven't cast any spell," Mena protested. "I don't even know what I'm doing. I just touched him and he seemed to like it." Jiwan stepped closer to her friend. "Mena, think about your research. You've been studying dragon genetics for 3 years. Have you found anything that might explain this?" Mena adjusted her glasses and thought carefully. "Well, there are some interesting patterns in the DNA sequences I've been analyzing. Dragons from different worlds share certain genetic markers that shouldn't exist unless they had a common origin point. And some of those markers are similar to sequences found in Earth's extinct dragon fossils." "Earth had dragons?" Captain Lee asked with surprise. "Fossils suggest they did, millions of years ago, but they went extinct long before humans evolved. At least, that's what we thought." Mena paused, looking up at Varac's massive form. "But what if the genetic connection goes deeper than that? What if early human ancestors had some kind of relationship with the original dragon species?" The Empress laughed, but it was not a pleasant sound. Ridiculous. "Humans are newcomers to the galaxy. Your species has been spacefaring for less than 200 years. Dragons have been the companions of advanced civilizations for millennia. But what if we're wrong about the timeline?" Mena asked, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. "What if dragons originally came from Earth, or at least from the same genetic source? That could explain why Varric is responding to me." This way, as if to support her theory, Varrock made a sound that was almost like speech. It was a complex series of low rumbles and whistles that seemed directed at Mena. She found herself responding instinctively. "I know," she said softly, reaching up to pat his snout. "It must be confusing for you." The dragon's eyes brightened, and he made the sound again, more excitedly this time. The Empress stared at this exchange with growing alarm. "She's communicating with him. How is that possible?" "It takes years of training to understand dragon speech patterns." "Maybe it's not training," Juwan suggested. "Maybe it's instinct." Captain Lee stepped forward again. "Your Majesty, I propose a temporary solution. We'll set up quarters in the research section where Dr. Park can stay near the dragon while we figure out what's happening. This will keep everyone safe while we investigate the situation." "Investigate?" The Empress's scales shifted to an even darker red. "There's nothing to investigate. Varrock belongs to me. He is my weapon, my companion, my responsibility. I will not have him corrupted by human influence. Varrock's head swung toward the Empress again, and this time his growl was unmistakably warning. The dragon's massive body tensed, ready to defend. Maina, if necessary, the sight of her own war dragon preparing to fight her was too much for the Empress. She stumbled backward, her face showing a mixture of rage, confusion, and something that might have been fear. "This is not over," she said, her voice shaking. "I will find a way to restore my dragon to his proper loyalty. Whatever trick you have used, human, I will undo it." But as she spoke, Varrock moved even closer to Maina, wrapping one massive wing protectively around her small form. The message was clear. The dragon had chosen his side, and it was not with his former master, Captain Lee. Looked around the hangar bay at the shocked faces of crew members and diplomatic staff. "I think we all need some time to process what's happened here. Dr. Park, are you willing to help us understand this situation?" Mina nodded, still amazed by the warm weight of the dragon wing around her shoulders. "I'll do whatever I can. But I think we're dealing with something much bigger than just one dragon's behavior. This could change everything we know about the relationship between humans and dragons." The Empress's eyes flashed with something dangerous. "Yes," she said quietly. "It could change everything, and that is exactly what I am afraid of." 3 days had passed since the incident in the hangar bay. News of what happened had spread across both human and alien communication networks faster than anyone expected. The story was simple but shocking. A human girl had somehow tamed the most feared war dragon in the galaxy without any training or technology. Maina sat in her expanded laboratory, which had been converted to accommodate Varrock's massive size. The dragon lay curled around her workstation like an enormous cat, his head resting near her computer so he could watch her work. Every few minutes he would make a soft rumbling sound, and Mina would reach over to pat his snout without looking away from her research. The genetic data she had been studying for 3 years was finally starting to make sense. The dragon DNA samples from 42 different worlds all shared the same base markers. But more importantly, those markers matched genetic sequences found in Earth's fossil records from 65 million years ago. Dr. Kim Ji-won entered the lab carrying 2 cups of coffee and looking tired. She had barely slept since the diplomatic crisis began. "Any new discoveries?" she asked, handing Mina a cup. "Too many," Mina replied, pushing her glasses up her nose. "Ji-won, I think dragons didn't evolve on any of the worlds where we find them now. They were spread across the galaxy by someone else millions of years ago." Varrock lifted his head and made a complex series of sounds that almost sounded like agreement. Over the past 3 days, Mina had begun to understand some of his vocalizations. It was not really a language, but more like emotional communication. "That's impossible," Ji-won said. "Who could have had that kind of technology 60 million years ago?" Before Mina could answer, Captain Lee entered the lab followed by 2 figures she did not recognize. One was clearly alien, tall and thin, with silver skin and large black eyes. The other was human, a woman in an admiral's uniform with short gray hair and a stern expression. "Dr. Park," Captain Lee said formally, "I'd like you to meet Admiral Cho Yuna from the Colonial Defense Fleet and Elder Researcher Nam Hansel from the Neutral Archives." Varrock raised his head and studied the newcomers carefully. He made a low questioning sound, and Mina instinctively reached out to calm him. It's okay," she said softly. "They're friends." The dragon relaxed but kept watching the visitors. Admiral Cho stepped forward first. She was about 50 years old with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Dr. Park, I've come because this situation has created a potential military crisis. 3 alien empires have mobilized fleets, claiming that humans might use dragons to build a war force. I need to understand what we're really dealing with here." "Elder?" Nam moved closer, his large black eyes focused on Varrock with obvious fascination. "I have come because the archives contain information that might explain what is happening. Information that has been hidden for thousands of years." "Hidden?" Mina asked. "What kind of information?" The elder's voice was soft and musical. "The truth about the dragon seeders. the ancient race that spread dragon eggs across the galaxy before they disappeared. Everyone in the room went silent except for Varak's gentle breathing. Elder Nam continued. 68 million years ago, a species called the progenitors ruled this galaxy. They were masters of genetic engineering and space travel. When they discovered that a cosmic disaster would destroy their civilization, they created a plan to preserve their greatest achievement. "The dragons," Mena whispered. Double quote. "Yes, but not just dragons. The progenitors also created companion species on selected worlds. Beings who could bond with dragons naturally, without technology or force. Earth was one of those worlds." Admiral Cho frowned. "Are you saying humans were genetically engineered?" "Not exactly," Elder Nam replied. "The progenitors planted genetic seeds in the evolutionary path of primitive species on many worlds. Most of those species died out when the cosmic disaster struck, but on Earth some survived. Over millions of years, those genetic markers became part of human DNA." Mina's coffee cup slipped from her hands and shattered on the floor. Varric immediately moved to shield her from the broken pieces, making worried sounds. "That's why he bonded with me," she said in amazement. "I carry the genetic markers of the original dragon companions. All humans do," Elder Nam confirmed. "But the markers are strongest in individuals who spend time around genetic material from multiple dragon species. Your 3 years of research have activated dormant sequences in your DNA." Jiwan stared at her friend. "You're telling us that Mina is becoming more like the original dragon-bonded species?" "The process is already complete," Elder Nam said. "Can you not see how the dragon responds to her? He does not obey her commands because there are no commands. They communicate as equals, as partners. This is how the bond was meant to work." "Captain." Li looked worried. "What does this mean for the rest of humanity? Will other people start bonding with dragons too?" Before Elder Nam could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the station. The emergency communication system activated. "All personnel to battle stations. Multiple alien fleets have entered the system. Repeat, we are facing a potential hostile situation." Admiral Cho activated her risk communicator. "Bridge, this is Admiral Cho. Report." "Ma'am, we have 7 different fleets surrounding the station. They're demanding we turn over the human who can control dragons. The Empress Kalathara is with them, and she's claiming that humans have stolen her dragon using illegal mind control." Varac's head shot up, and he made a sound that was definitely angry. His red eyes began to glow brighter. "He knows his old master is here," Mina said. "And he's not happy about it." Admiral Cho looked grim. "Dr. Park, I need to ask you something very important. If other humans can develop this bonding ability, could we potentially have an army of dragon riders?" Mina thought carefully. "The genetic markers exist in all humans, but activating them might require exposure to dragon DNA over time. It's not something that could happen quickly, but it could happen? Yes, given enough time and the right conditions, any human could potentially bond with a dragon." Elder Nam stepped forward. "This is why the fleets have come. They fear that humanity will become the dominant species in the galaxy. Dragons have been symbols of power for thousands of years. If humans can bond with them naturally while other species need technology or force, the balance of power will shift completely." The communication system crackled again. "Admiral, the fleets are demanding a response in 1 hour. They want Dr. Park and the dragon turned over to the Draconic Empire, or they will consider this an act of war." Varrac stood up to his full height, his wings spreading slightly. He made a sound that was clearly a challenge, a roar that said, he would fight anyone who tried to take Mina away. "I won't let them hurt you," Mina said, placing her hand on his snout. "We're partners now." The dragon's expression softened, and he lowered his head to nuzzle her gently. Admiral Cho watched this exchange with growing understanding. "The question is, Dr. Park, are you willing to stand up to 7 alien fleets? Because I think you and your dragon might be the key to changing everything." Mena looked around the room at the faces of her friends and colleagues. Then she looked up at Varrac, who gazed back at her with complete trust and loyalty. I'm just a scientist, she said, quietly. But if this could help other humans bond with dragons, if it could change how dragons are treated across the galaxy, then yes, I'll stand up to anyone. Outside the station, 7 fleets waited for an answer that would determine the future of human-dragon relationships forever. The standoff had lasted 12 hours. 7 alien fleets surrounded the research station, their weapons charged and ready. Inside the station, Mina sat beside Varakth in the modified laboratory. But something was wrong with the dragon. Varakth lay on his side, breathing heavily. His usually bright red eyes were dim, and his black scales had lost their shine. Every few minutes he would shiver despite the warm temperature in the lab. "He's getting worse," Dr. Kim Ji-won said, checking the readings on her medical scanner. "His body temperature is dropping and his heart rate is irregular." Mena knelt beside the dragon's massive head, stroking the scales between his eyes. "What's wrong with him?" she asked Elder Nam, who had been studying Varakth for the past hour. "Stress," the elder replied sadly. "Dragons are not meant to be torn between loyalties." For 50 years, Varakth served the Empress. Now he has chosen you, but his body is fighting against a lifetime of conditioning. Captain Lee paced near the laboratory entrance. "The Empress is demanding to see her dragon. She claims her medical team can cure him." "No," Mina said firmly. "They'll just try to force him back to their old methods. That's what's making him sick in the first place." Admiral Cho entered the lab looking exhausted. She had been negotiating with the alien fleets for hours. "Dr. Park, the situation is getting worse. 3 more empires have sent ships. They're all afraid that if humans can bond with dragons naturally, we'll become too powerful." Varakth made a weak sound and tried to lift his head. Mina immediately moved closer, letting him rest his snout in her lap. "I know you're scared," she whispered to him. "But I'm not going anywhere. We're partners, remember?" The dragon's breathing calmed slightly at her words. Dr. Jiwan frowned at her scanner readings. "Mina, his stress hormones are off the charts. It's like his body can't decide which instincts to follow. The old training says obey the Empress, but his natural bonding instincts say stay with you." "Then we need to help him choose," Mina said. She thought about everything she had learned about dragon behavior over the past 3 years. Dragons in the wild don't respond to commands. They respond to trust and partnership. Elder Nam nodded. "The progenitors designed the bond to be based on mutual respect, not dominance." "So what do I do?" Mina asked. "Treat him like a partner, not a pet or a weapon," Elder Nam suggested. "Talk to him as an equal." Mina adjusted her glasses and looked into Varakth's dim red eyes. "Varakth, I need you to listen to me. I know you're confused about what you should do. The Empress trained you to follow orders, but that's not who you really are." The dragon's eyes focused on her face. "You're not a weapon," Mina continued. "You're an intelligent being who deserves to make his own choices. I can't command you to. Get better, but I can ask you to trust me. Will you let me help you find your own way?" Varakth was quiet for a long moment. Then he made a sound that was definitely an answer, though Mina was not sure what he was saying. "I think he's trying to tell you something," Jawan said. "His heart rate just stabilized when you spoke to him." The laboratory doors burst open, and Empress Kalathara strode in followed by 4 guards. Her scales were dark red with anger, and her yellow eyes blazed. "Enough of this foolishness," she declared. "My dragon is dying because of your human interference. Stand aside and let my healers work." Varakth's head snapped up, and he made a sound that was part roar, part whine. His body tensed as if preparing to flee or fight. "You're making him worse," Mina said, standing up to face the Empress. "Can't you see that your presence is causing him stress?" "I am his master," the Empress replied coldly. "He belongs to me." "No. One belongs to anyone else," Mina shot back, surprising herself with her boldness. "Varakth is not property. He's a living being with the right to choose his own path." The Empress laughed harshly. "Choose? Dragons do not choose. They are trained, conditioned, and controlled. That is how it has always been." "Then maybe that's the problem," Mina said. "Maybe the old way is wrong. Behind her, Varak struggled to stand. His legs shook with the effort, but he managed to position himself between Mina and the Empress. Even sick and weak, he was still trying to protect his chosen partner. The sight of her own dragon defying her was too much for the Empress. Varak, I command you to return to my ship immediately. You will submit to medical treatment and reconditioning. The dragon's response was to wrap one wing protectively around Mina and growl at his former master. Elder Nam stepped forward. Your Majesty, with respect, your methods will not work. The bond between Dr. Park and Varak has activated genetic programming that cannot be undone by force. Then what do you suggest? The Empress demanded. Let Dr. Park try her way, Admiral Cho said. If she can help Varak recover, maybe we can avoid a war. The Empress looked around the laboratory at the determined faces surrounding her. Fine, she said at last. You have 6 hours. If the dragon is not cured by then, I will take him by force and deal with the consequences. After the Empress left, Mina sat down beside Varak again. The dragon was breathing heavily, exhausted by the confrontation. Okay, Mina said softly. Let's try something different. She began talking to Varak about her research, explaining the genetic connections she had discovered in simple terms. She told him about the progenitors and how dragons were meant to be partners, not slaves. As she spoke, she gently stroked his scales and made sure he was comfortable. Slowly, Varak's breathing became more regular. His eyes grew brighter, and some of the shine returned to his scales. It's working, Jawan whispered, watching her scanner. His stress levels are dropping. He needed to understand that he had permission to choose, Mina explained. For 50 years he's been told that obedience was his only option. Now he knows there's another way. Over the next few hours, Varak continued to improve. Mina brought him food and water, but instead of commanding him to eat, she simply offered it and let him decide. She explained everything she was doing and asked for his cooperation rather than demanding it. The dragon began responding to her requests, but not as orders. It was more like a conversation between equals when the Empress returned 6 hours later. She found Varak standing upright, his eyes bright and his scales gleaming. He was healthy and strong, but he stayed close to Mina's side. How did you do it? The Empress asked quietly. I treated him like a partner instead of a possession, Mina replied. I gave him the choice to trust me. The Empress stared at her dragon for a long moment. In 50 years I never saw him look so content, she admitted. That's because he's finally free to be himself, Mina said, outside the station. The alien fleets continued to wait, but something had changed. Word was spreading among the dragon riders in those fleets about what had happened on the research station. Some of them were beginning to ask uncomfortable questions about their own relationships with their dragons. The revolution had begun, and there was no going back. News of Varak's recovery had spread beyond the research station faster than anyone expected. The story was now being broadcast across dozens of star systems. A human girl had not only bonded with the galaxy's most feared war dragon, but had also cured him using methods that no alien civilization understood. Mina stood in the station's main observation deck, watching the alien fleets through the large windows. There were now 12 different groups of ships surrounding them, representing most of the major powers in this part of the galaxy. Varak lay beside her, calm and alert. His red eyes also focused on the ships outside. Commander Park Yamin, Mina's cousin and a tactical officer from the Colonial Defense Fleet, stood nearby studying readings on his tablet. He was 30 years old, with the same serious expression that ran in their family, but his eyes showed pride when he looked at his cousin. The situation is getting complicated, he told her. Some of the fleets are here to prevent humans from building a dragon army, but others are here because their own dragons are starting to act strangely. Strangely how? Mina asked. 3 dragons from different fleets have refused orders in the past day. One actually broke free from its containment and tried to reach this station before being recaptured. Varak made a sound that Mina had learned meant concern or worry. He knows, she said, patting the dragon's snout. He can sense that other dragons are questioning their bonds too. Dr. Juwan entered the observation deck carrying a datapad and looking excited. Mina, you need to see this. We've been monitoring communications from the fleets, and there are reports of dragon behavior problems across multiple empires. She handed Mina the datapad, which showed incident reports from the past week. Dragons refusing to fight in training exercises. Dragons becoming depressed when separated from their riders for too long. Dragons showing signs of stress that their masters could not understand. It's like Varak's liberation has triggered something in other dragons, Mina said. They're remembering what the bond is supposed to feel like. Commander Yemen frowned. The alien governments are panicking. If their dragons stop obeying orders, their entire military structure could collapse? Good, Mina said firmly. Maybe it's time for that structure to change. The communication system activated, and Captain Lee's voice echoed through the station. Dr. Park, please report to Conference Room 1. We have a situation developing. When Mina arrived at the conference room with Varak following behind her, she found it filled with people she did not recognize. Admiral Cho stood at the head of the table next to a large screen showing tactical displays of the surrounding fleets. Dr. Park, the Admiral said, I'd like you to meet some representatives from the Dragon Rider Corps of various alien empires. They've come here secretly to ask for your help. The first representative was a tall alien with blue skin and silver markings. I am Captain Valtar of the Hegemony Fleet. My dragon Skyren has not eaten in 3 days. She will not respond to any of our standard conditioning techniques. Another representative, this one with green scales and 4 arms, stepped forward. I am Wing Commander Zeftos. My dragon Stormclaw has become aggressive toward our training staff, but gentle with me personally. We do not understand why. A third representative, humanoid but with golden skin and large eyes, spoke next. I am Squadron Leader Kendar. Yesterday, my dragon Flameheart actually tried to communicate with me using sounds I have never heard before. Our experts say this is impossible. Mena looked around the table at the worried faces. Your dragons are trying to form real bonds with you. They're acting the way dragons are supposed to act when they have partners instead of masters. But we are their masters, Captain Veltar protested. That is how the system works. The system is wrong, Mina said simply. Dragons were never meant to be controlled through force or technology. They were designed to be partners with species that could communicate with them naturally. Varric moved closer to Mina and made a series of complex sounds. She listened carefully, then nodded. Varrock says your dragons are trying to tell you something important. They want to choose their own relationships instead of having them forced on them. Wing Commander Zeftos looked skeptical. How can you understand what he is saying? Our best linguists have studied dragon vocalizations for centuries without success. I don't think it's really language, Mina explained. It's more like emotional communication. Varric shares his feelings with me, and I respond with my own feelings. We understand each other on a level that goes deeper than words. The alien representatives exchanged glances. Captain Veltar spoke first. If what you say is true, how can we learn to communicate with our dragons this way? You probably can't, Elder Nam said, entering the conference room quietly. The genetic markers that allow natural dragon bonding are extremely rare. Humans have them because they were placed there millions of years ago. Most other species do not. Then what are we supposed to do? Squadron Leader Kandar asked. Our entire military depends on dragon riders. Maybe that's the problem, Commander. Yamin suggested. Maybe military applications aren't what dragons are meant for. Before anyone could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. The tactical display on the main screen lit up with new contacts. Admiral, Captain Lee's voice came over the communicator, we have a new development. A young dragon from the Hegemony Fleet has broken free and is approaching the station. It appears to be unarmed and flying alone. On the screen they could see a smaller dragon approaching the station. It was bright silver with blue markings, and it moved with obvious purpose. Captain Veltar stepped forward. That is Ryathul, one of our newest dragons. She bonded with Pilot Nera only 6 months ago. Where is the pilot? Admiral Cho asked. Still aboard our ship? Rythel left without her. Mena felt Varak's shift beside her. The large dragon was making excited sounds and moving toward the window. Varak knows her, Mina realized. He's trying to welcome her. The silver dragon landed gently in the station's main hangar bay. Through the security cameras they could see her looking around curiously, her head turning this way and that as if searching for something. She's looking for Varak, Mina said, and probably for a human who can understand her. Admiral Cho made a decision. Dr. Park, are you willing to meet with this dragon? If she's come here voluntarily, she might be trying to tell us something important. Mina nodded. Varak and I will go talk to her. As they left the conference room, Commander Yemen caught up with them. Cousin, be careful. This could be the moment that changes everything for our species. I know, Mina replied. That's exactly why we have to do it right. In the hangar bay, they found Rythel waiting patiently. When she saw Varak, she made a series of joyful sounds and approached them eagerly. Varak responded with his own vocalizations, and the two dragons seemed to be having a conversation. Then Rythel turned to Mina and made a sound that was clearly a question. She wants to know if she can choose her own partner, Mina said, understanding. Instinctively, she doesn't want to be assigned to someone. She wants to find a human who will treat her as an equal. The silver dragon nodded her head vigorously. Yes, Mina told her, you have the right to choose. That's what freedom means. Rythel's response was a sound of pure joy. She had just become the first dragon in recorded history to formally request the right to choose her own destiny. The revolution in the stars had found its voice, and it belonged to a young silver dragon who dared to fly toward freedom. The hangar bay had become the center of galactic attention. Rythel's arrival had triggered a series of events that no one could have predicted. Within hours, 3 more dragons had broken free from their fleets and flown to the research station. Each one sought the same thing, the right to choose their own path. Mina stood before the largest gathering of beings she had ever seen. The hangar bay had been converted into a makeshift assembly hall, with representatives from 12 different alien empires, the human colonial government, and the neutral council all present. Cameras broadcast the event across hundreds of star systems. Varak lay beside her, calm and supportive, while the other 4 dragons who had sought sanctuary at the station arranged themselves nearby. Each dragon had chosen to be there voluntarily, and their presence sent a clear message to the galaxy. Admiral Cho stepped forward to address the assembly. We are here today to discuss what may be the most important development in galactic history. The natural bonding between humans and dragons has revealed fundamental problems with how we have treated these intelligent beings for thousands of years. Empress Kalathara sat in the front row, her expression unreadable. Her scales had shifted to a neutral gold color, and she had been unusually quiet since arriving for the assembly. The evidence is clear, Elder Nam announced, standing at a podium covered with genetic data displays. Dragons were never meant to be controlled through force or technology. The original bond was based on mutual respect and partnership. Humans carry the genetic markers necessary for this type of relationship because they were placed there by the progenitors millions of years ago. Captain Veltar raised one of his 4 hands. If humans have this natural ability, what does that mean for the rest of us? Our civilizations have depended on dragon riders for military and transportation purposes for generations. Commander Yemen activated a holographic display showing tactical analyses. Our preliminary studies suggest that willing dragon partnerships are actually more effective than forced ones. Dragons who choose their riders are more motivated, healthier, and show greater problem-solving abilities. But how can we ensure that dragons will choose to work with us? Wing Commander Zeftos asked. If they are free to leave, what guarantees do we have? Mena stepped forward, her voice quiet but carrying clearly through the vast space. You don't get guarantees, she said. That's what partnership means. You have to earn trust every day. You have to treat your dragon as an equal, not as property. Rythel made a sound of agreement, and the other dragons joined in with their own vocalizations. The young dragon speaks for all of them, Elder Nam translated. They are saying that freedom to choose does not mean freedom to abandon responsibility. They want to work with other species, but as partners, not as slaves. Squadron leader Kandar stood up. Dr. Park, if we accept this new system, how do we learn to communicate with our dragons the way you do? Most species probably can't, Mina replied honestly. The genetic compatibility is rare, but that doesn't mean you can't form good relationships with your dragons. You just need to start treating them with respect and listening to what they're trying to tell you. Empress Kalathara finally spoke, her voice carrying the weight of centuries. I have ruled the Draconic Empire for 800 years. In all that time, I believed that strength came from control, that power meant dominance over others. She paused, looking at Varakth. But I have watched my most prized dragon choose happiness over duty, partnership over obedience. And I have seen him become stronger, not weaker, because of that choice. The assembly held its breath. I hereby propose the Dragon Accords, the Empress continued. A new treaty that recognizes dragons as autonomous beings with the right to choose their own partnerships. Any dragon who wishes to leave their current situation may do so freely. Any dragon who chooses to stay will be treated as an equal partner, not as property. The announcement sent shockwaves through the assembly. Representatives began talking urgently among themselves. This was not what anyone had expected from the leader of the most powerful dragon-based empire in the galaxy. Admiral Cho called for order. The proposal will need to be discussed and voted on by all member governments, but I want to go on record as saying that the human colonial government supports the Dragon Accords. One by one, other representatives stood to voice their support. Not all of them were enthusiastic, but the evidence was too strong to ignore. Dragons who were treated as partners performed better than those who were controlled by force. As the formal session ended, Mina found herself surrounded by reporters and diplomats asking questions. But she was more interested in the quiet conversation happening between the dragons. Varakth, Rythel, and the others were communicating in their complex series of sounds and movements. What are they talking about? Dr. Jiwan asked, approaching. With her scanner. They're planning, Mina said with a smile. They're deciding how to help other dragons understand that they have choices now. Elder Nam joined them. This is just the beginning, Dr. Park. It will take years, maybe decades, for the new system to be fully implemented. There will be resistance from governments and military forces who depend on the old ways. But it's the right thing to do, Mina replied firmly. Dragons deserve to be free to choose their own paths. 6 months later, Mina stood in a lecture hall at the Galactic University, presenting her research to a mixed audience of humans, aliens, and dragons. The Dragon Accords had been signed by most major governments. Though implementation was still ongoing, Varakth lay beside the podium, no longer the fearsome war dragon of legend, but a content research partner. In the audience, she could see other human-dragon pairs who had formed bonds over the past months. Not many, but enough to prove that the genetic compatibility was real. The most important thing we've learned, Mina told her audience, is that partnership is always stronger than domination. When we treat others as equals, when we respect their right to choose, we create relationships that benefit everyone involved. A young human student raised her hand. Dr. Park, what's next for human-dragon research? Mina smiled. We're just getting started. There are indications that other species in the galaxy might have similar genetic markers. The progenitors may have created the potential for interspecies partnerships throughout the galaxy. We're not just talking about dragons anymore. We're talking about a completely new way for different species to work together. In the back of the lecture hall, Empress Kalathara sat quietly, taking notes. She had stepped down from her throne to become a student of the new partnership methods. Her empire was transforming from a conquest-based society to one built on cooperation and mutual respect. After the lecture, Mina and Varakth walked through the university gardens. Other students, both human and alien, greeted them respectfully. The dragon who had once been the most feared creature in the galaxy was now known as a gentle giant who enjoyed helping with research projects. You know, Mina said to her partner, I never thought studying genetics would lead to a galactic revolution. Varrica made a sound that she had learned meant amusement. Then he made a more complex series of sounds that she translated as something like, the best discoveries usually happen when you're not looking for them. Wise words from a wise dragon, Mina replied, patting his snout affectionately above them. The stars shone down on a galaxy that was slowly learning that true strength came not from controlling others, but from the bonds of trust and partnership that connected all intelligent beings. The revolution had succeeded, and the future looked brighter than anyone had dared to hope. In the distance, a group of young dragons played with human children in the university courtyard, their laughter echoing across the campus. The age of forced servitude was ending, and the age of true partnership had begun.